How's it going, my dudes? Welcome back to another Gods of Genesis video. So for today, I'm bringing you a tier list, but this is completely based on my own opinions. So this was requested by one of my viewers. So I'm going to cover 3 main tier lists for today. One being the early game, the other being the mid game, and then finally we'll end off with the end game. So I put in a little bit of effort onto this, so I hope you enjoy and you appreciate it. And if you disagree with anything, do let me know down in the comments. And without further ado, let the downvotes begin. So on the left, you'll see triple S, double S, single S. Any heroes that exist in these 3 tiers, they are considered good and usable, and just straight up, you should use it. If you have the hero, just use it. But anything in A, B, and C, A being, it's good to use if you do not have any other better options. B is something like, it's not that good anymore, there are a lot of better options out there. And C is just straight up, I would recommend you not to use it for the whatever state of the game we are in. We are going to work our way upwards, starting from C, the tier that we do not want to use these heroes at all. We're going to start with Hades. He may seem like a good option, especially when his second skill can keep on proccing and hitting and hitting and hitting as long as you can take out the enemies one by one, right? But to be honest, that's just a dream. It will never ever come true. You will not be able to see yourself clearing waves by waves by waves. It's not going to happen. His damage output is just not enough. Next on the list is one of my most favorite units, but because at a low level you do not have your perks unlocked, Changa is actually quite redundant, quite useless, okay? So all she is really good for is just dropping one single lantern, which breaks immediately, okay? The enemy just need to take one turn, boom, your lantern is gone, your heals is not doing much, your damage is not good at all. She's pretty much crap at the early game. And next on the list, we have the newest hero, Mulan. She's really good at the end, but not at the early game, okay? Because her talent doesn't really do anything. Her kit is pretty much quite useless, to be honest, just AoE burns and just a single target hit. There are a lot of other heroes out there that does the same thing. Loki is not that good right now, but I'm going to talk about her a little bit more later. Next on B tier, we have Cleopatra, huge AoE DPS minus the DPS, so she's basically just an AoE poison damage dealer, no big deal. And then next we have Mary with a huge AoE without the damage factor as well, not very good. And then Michael is basically a clown, but he's slightly better than Mulan because he can revive if he takes a fatality. And he does have that initial AoE burn, which can be quite useful. So starting on the A tier now, we have Athena with a lot of AoE heals. However, the heal is just not good enough, it's not strong enough, okay? And her invincibility buff is good. While it's good, it's not game-changing for her as a priest. There are a lot of better healers out there. Moving on, we have Gabriel, who is really good at extending buffs in an AoE, so she's just like a really good debuffer, and she drops an immunity buff on your team as well. I think it's called Divinity. But that's basically, this game is not really heavy on debuffs, to be honest. It's not very heavy on this kind of stuff, unlike most of other games, so her use is quite limited. And then we have the Jester over here. He doesn't really do a lot of things. He just does an AoE defense break, and then his triple strike just hits the tank, right? That's it. But he gets more useful down the line, and he actually becomes one of my most favorite heroes. Right next to him, we have Poseidon, who is like the Valkyrie with just one single invincible buff. And we have Tamamo, who is a single target nuke. Pretty good in that sense, but there are much better options out there. She does have a nice freezing kit, but it's really not such a big deal because in the early game, it's all about taking out the enemies as quick as possible. Moving on to the S tier, we start off with Pandora. She has a very nice second skill that allows her to bypass tanks and interceptors just because she can target whoever she wants to target and nuke that target down. So she's going to be quite useful for the early game. Next to her, we have an assassin, Hattori Hanzo. Her damage is not too bad, okay? She does have 4 barons, and then the more she uses her third skill, her second skill improves. The more she uses her second skill, the more her third skill improves. So that's kind of nice over there. And then we have Medusa, who has a very good single target Petrify and decent poison kit. So that's about all she's really good for, just a stunner. Or crowd control. Next to her, we have Abe no Seimei, who is a really good crowd control unit. That's about it. But this goes a very long distance because he's going to be very useful throughout the entire game. Next to Abe, we have Shakespeare. He's a really good random buffer. I really enjoy using him a lot. I really do. He drops all kinds of buffs on your team. It's all randomized, so you can get all kinds of good stuff. You can get invincibility, you can get attack buffs, you can get defense buffs, you can get immunities, whatever it is, he will give it to you. And then we have Apollo here. Okay, you know what, to be honest, I think Apollo deserves an A rather than an S. But that's because he has the ability to dispel debuffs on your team, which means that if your team is like frozen, petrified, stunned, whatever it is, slapped, he can remove all of it with his one single skill. So now we have Isabella. All she does is really just AoE heal, more and more heals. That's about all she really does. However, we do have another healer who is tiered above her, and I will talk a little bit more about her in a moment. Starting on the double S tier, we have Lucifer in the house. She is really good, a really good single target nuke, the best single target nuke. For the early game, hands down, nothing else compares to her. She even increases her crit rate on enemies who are poisoned, which gives her that so much of an edge over the other single target DPSs. However, she can be really energy inefficient, so do be careful on using her. Artemis is not bad, but she does get a lot stronger down the road, so that's about it. Merlin is hands down the best mage in the game. In terms of AoE magic damage, she is the best hands down. But in the early game, she's not going to be doing a whole lot of damage because you're going to be lacking a lot on equipment, you're going to be lacking a lot on gems and stuff like that. So damage output is not going to be amazing, but she is still the best, so she's up in the double S. Joan is a decent tanker for the early game, not the best, but still good enough. Marco Polo is nice because she has a self-heal, which is a skill that a lot of tanks do not have, okay, and she's an interceptor as well, which makes her one of the most preferred interceptors, especially for the early game. Everyone has access to her, and there is no excuse for you not to bring a tank. There she is, she comes right at the start of the game. Alice is going to be really useful, especially if you're going to be using Lucifer a lot, because Lucifer is going to cost you a lot of energy, but Alice is going to be able to be the battery that gives you that energy back. Cupid is an amazing support. She brings AoE attack buff and AoE regen. Very good use for the whole game, to be honest. So I'm gonna chuck her here in double S. And here are my top picks for the early game. Okay, we start with Lilith. There is no excuse as to why she's the top. Every single AoE that she does is going to clear every single flaw. That's crazy, okay? For an AoE to be able to clear every single thing, every single PvE content, that's gonna be very, very key in having a strong foundation. Next to Lilith, we have Dracula, who is amazing in all aspects. Firstly, he's a fire type, which means that he grants you the crit rate bonus at the start of the game when you really lack that crit rate. And he has an essential soul link that actually minimizes the damage that you receive from all content. So he makes your entire team extremely tanky just because he's standing over there, and he cannot even die because he has a self-undying buff when he hits 0, and then he actually heals himself after that, so he becomes truly unkillable. He is an amazing factor for any team comp. And Valkyrie is by far the best tank for the early game because she has an invincibility buff that she can apply onto herself and onto another one of your allies, giving your team so much more resistance to the enemy's attacks. And here we end off with the final triple S unit, Venus over here. Okay, so Venus is the hero that, like I said before, outshines Isabella. And that's because Venus technically has the same kit as Isabella, but Venus is a fire type. And with fire types, like I said, she would be able to give your team the 15% crit rate bonus from the beginning. Moving on to the mid game, not much has changed except that we are shuffling some heroes around, okay? So nothing here that you can see has changed except for the fact that Shakespeare is now down to A from S. That's because his buffs are becoming more and more unreliable. And he doesn't really quite bring anything else other than just buffing the team. So he drops in value in the mid game. Over at the S tier, you can see that some things have changed a lot, to be honest. A lot of heroes are missing over here, but two things are over here. Now Jester is over here and Loki is here as well. So from the mid game, Jester is going to be quite reliable because his triple strike now can target whoever he wants to target. And that is a very important factor in taking out enemy teams. You can go past their interceptors just like that, just because your second skill now can hit whoever you want. And Loki is going to be more reliable now because Loki does drop a poison debuff on everyone at the start of the turn, and with that, your Lucifer is actually going to be able to crit right at the beginning, okay, without having a lot of crit gems, crit weapons, stuff like that. Your Lucifer is going to be able to function very well just because you put a Loki in your lineup. Isabella is still going to stay at tier S because Venus is still going to be a much better healer than she is. Wow, a lot of things have changed. Okay, so firstly, Lilith is going to go down. This is not a surprise anymore. That's because her second skill, her AoE, and her third skill are just not they're just not doing enough damage, to be honest. The second skill is no longer clearing waves just by a single hit. And this is taking away from her usefulness a lot. Poseidon has shot up from A to double S. That's because right now when you have unlocked the World Arena, you realize that Poseidon is going to be super meta in denying the fact that your tanks even exist. With one single skill, he's going to be able to nullify all your tanks, and their teammates are just going to be able to go ham on the rest of your guys. Very meta, very, very good to use. I would recommend everyone to build a Poseidon. Joan is going to be really useful here because probably by now you should be already at like 4-star. And if you are, as long as one of your teammates die, they get an invincibility buff and they actually survive for one more turn. So that with Joan sticking around at 4 stars, she's going to make your team a lot more tankier, so she's going to be at SS. And over here, Alice has a little bit of a different use. She's no longer so much of a battery, but more of a sleeper. Okay, so because she has a very high base speed, she's going to be able to go first in most of your World Arena matches, okay, and then she's going to outspeed everyone else and drop a sleep on the enemy's tank or whoever that you really want to sleep at the start. In addition to Alice, we have Medusa and Abe over here because they do pretty much the same thing. They're going to go on the first turn, they're going to AoE crowd control, and then your team is able to just go ham on the enemies. Polo is moving up along with all the crowd controllers as well because he is the key counter to crowd control teams. He's going to be able to cleanse your whole team on turn 2, as long as he's in your support position, okay? But if he's in the main position, then he's going to be able to do whatever he needs to do right at the start. But I will still highly suggest you to use Apollo as a support hero because that's where he really shines the most. Venus has dropped from SS because now her heals are no longer that useful. In a sense, she's still kinda useful but not crazy good. You are able to stay away from healers from this point onwards. Finally, we reveal the SS over here. Lucifer is going to be the queen of the entire hero lineup. Whatever it is, Lucifer is going to be the major powerhouse of the mid game. That's because right now she can use her third skill to double kill with the small cost of just 2 energy. With sufficient crit rate, she would be able to take out tanks as well, because tanks are not going to have enough resilience at this stage of the game, and your Lucifer is just going to pick every single piece of their team apart. Artemis is starting to shine over here, shining really strongly, to be honest. She's going to be able to take out someone, right, and then take another turn to take out someone else again. And she has a very fantastic passive as well, the talent, okay, that allows her to target the weakest enemy on their lineup, which is going to be a really good additional damage, especially against the enemy's DPSs or their healers. Merlin is going to be OP right now, okay, because she's going to be able to be the main carry of all Grand Archives 2 modes. Marco Polo shines really well here for one extra reason. Now that Lucifer is super meta, if you're going to go against an AFK arena team or maybe like just like normal arena mode, their Lucifer is going to target a Marco Polo and Marco Polo is going to tank really well. And here we have the end game. Starting at tier C, Alice is no longer useful. She's no longer used anywhere, okay? You do not need her anymore. Loki is also no longer useful. Shakespeare is also like, it's just too unreliable that you don't want to put Shakespeare in your team anymore. Mary and Michael are still pretty much the duo of unhappiness. And Venus is no longer useful because you do not really need heals anymore, to be honest. She can still fit a support role that gives you the crit rate bonus, but at this point in time, you are jacked out on crit rate. You do not need the fire set anymore. Pandora is going to be severely weakened over here because everyone has a crowd control of some sort, okay? Either their tanks have crowd control like a Marco Polo, or they have like Abe and Oseme on their lineup. Whatever it is, Pandora is going to be nullified immediately. She's not going to be able to drop a second skill. Going up to the S rank, this is going to be a bit of a surprise for you guys. Lucifer is chucked over here right now. That's because she's no longer going to be able to crit anyone in PvP. She's not going to be able to crit 180% RSL tank, a Valkyrie or a Joan of Arc over there. So as such, she's not going to be useful at all. She's just going to burn your energy, like 3 energy just to like do 50,000 damage. That's no big deal. But she's still usable, that's why she's still in S rank. That's because she's still widely used in PvE content. She's still gonna be very reliable in PvE at least. Medusa is gonna fall down to S, that's because she can only crowd control one single target, and she doesn't really bring a lot to the table after that. Hattori is still useful over here. She does decent damage. She has the self-stealth at the start of the fight, which is gonna be quite useful. But other than that, she's just an okay DPS. Marco Polo is going to fall down. That's because Joan of Arc and Valkyrie are going to completely outshine Marco Polo right now. Marco Polo is not going to have the stats that is needed to continue tanking that effectively, especially in PvP. Cleopatra is making a comeback over here, rising up to S rank. And that's because she is a ranger, which means that she has access to the ranger tier, the ranger perk tree, which allows her to target stealth enemies and allows her to take an extra turn if she takes out someone else. That gives her a lot of punishing power, and as such she has risen from B to S. AoE is also starting to become the huge meta at the end game, so any AoE heroes that you have are going to be very good. That's why Cleopatra is up here. But actually, you know what, to be honest, I think I could move her up to double S, but the thing is, everyone else in the double S is just completely outshining her in every aspect. We're gonna start off with Jester on the double S. Yes, like I said before, he was not good at the early game, but now he is tremendously useful. With his second skill, he's gonna be able to one-shot anything, any DPS, any healers out there, they're all gonna get sniped. Poseidon is still very, very meta. He's still widely used over here. Not as much as the standard interceptor tanks, but he's still gonna be seen everywhere. He's still equally useful. Everyone is still gonna play a Joan of Arc and a Valkyrie. As such, Poseidon is just gonna be the ultimate counter to these comps. Valkyrie is gonna drop down to double S. That's because everyone has an AoE comp right now, which means that her second skill is no longer that effective. Okay, unless you're really going up against a Lucifer, then sure, more power to you. That shield is gonna be able to tank a lot for you. But if you're up against like a Lilith team, Merlin, Medusa, Abe no Seimei, whatever it is, a Changa team, everyone is just gonna cleave away all your shields. So she's not gonna be that reliable. Abe no Seimei is still gonna be the best crowd control unit, and Apollo is just gonna be the best counter crowd control unit. Cupid is still going strong because her attack buffs and her regen buffs is gonna be very good for all kinds of content. And here, Hades made the ultimate comeback from C all the way to double S. That's because at the end game, his usefulness lies in one situation where if you participate in PvE content, most of the time you're not going to be able to one-shot the enemies. As such, you're going to use Hades' third skill to follow up, and that would guarantee a snipe most of the time. Okay, as long as you drop the enemy down to 50% HP, Hades S3 will guarantee a snipe, which doesn't cost any energy at all because he actually replenishes that lost 3 energy. It's part of his perks. Or was it Awakening? It's one of those. Mulan is going to be crazy good, especially when she hits 6 stars. That's because right now, every single AoE that your teammates do will land a burn effect on the enemy. So she doesn't even need to have high speed. She doesn't even need to move, to be honest. As long as your team does AoE damage, they're going to be dropping lots of burn effects on the enemy's lineup, and that's gonna be increasing not only the damage that you're gonna deal on them because of the burn effect, but also decreasing their physical defense, which allows you to do harder AoE hits. And not only that, she's gonna be able to one-shot Moon Lantern and then take an extra turn because of her fighting spirit talent. And as such, she can jump on the Moon Lantern and then jump onto the next unit and then like do an AoE or whatever it is. She's really, really remarkable. And over here, Isabella makes a comeback. That's because her healing is going to be really strong and she has access to Equilibrium perk. Okay, so the Equilibrium perk allows you to balance your entire team's HP. So you just need to like heal one guy fully, and then his chunk of HP is going to be like spread into everyone, and then it's going to be really, really tanky for your entire lineup. And the fact that Isabella is really good at AoE heals, that means that your whole team is just going to be boosted to the max most of the time. Starting at triple S, we have Artemis, who is arguably one of the best DPSs in the game right now. She's super strong, her damage is crazy good, and she gets another turn when she takes a kill. So all in all, she's just a formidable foe. Lilith is making a comeback over here, and that's because right now her AoE is going to be doing enough damage to one-shot most enemy DPSs and healers as well. So she's no longer stuck in that odd zone in the mid game where she's not going to be doing a lot of damage on her second skill and her third skill. Now she's going to be doing a lot of damage. She doesn't need a whole lot of crit because you don't need a whole lot of crit to be able to land a crit on an enemy DPS. Merlin is going to be awesome here because now that there is an AoE meta, she's going to follow up with an AoE as well all the time, and as such, your damage is going to be increased across the board whenever you do an AoE damage. So I love to use Merlin with my Artemis. Sorry, I mean my Lilith. Obviously I don't have Artemis, that's why she's grayed out over there. I love to use her along with all my AoEs like Jester as well, and my Abe no Seimei. Dracula, as usual, super OP. And Joan of Arc, oh my goodness, if you have her raised to 6 stars, she's gonna be able to land 2 invincibility buffs on your teammates. So if both your AoE, both your DPSs die to AoE units, they're just gonna revive, sort of revive, but they're just gonna have like the invincibility buff on them that lasts for 1 whole turn, which means they cannot die for the next turn. They're gonna guarantee a move. You're gonna guarantee them a chance to do another round of DPS. And I'm sorry if I said that Hades was the major movement in this list. Changa is the major movement. She moved from C all the way to triple S, from the early game to the end game. And that's because right now, if you raise her up to 5 or 6 stars, her Moon Lantern is going to be incredibly strong. Not only are you going to prevent 90% of the AoE damage that your teammates take, the Moon Lantern also automatically is automatically casted at the start of the fight. So essentially, you have 2 moon lanterns from the beginning of the game, which means that as long as the enemy takes out one, you're going to be able to put up one immediately after that. And because of how relevant the AoE meta is right now, the fact that her moon lantern prevents AoE damage from dealing enough damage to hurt your team is going to make her an incredibly strong tank for your team. Sort of like a tank, okay? So with that said, wow, this is such a long video. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to me rambling about like who I feel are like the best units of like the early, mid, and the end game. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know down in the comments. If you didn't, let me know where you disagree on. And I'm putting a lot of effort to making this video come alive. So if you did appreciate my work, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you have not already done so. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.